Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. Now in November last year, I flew to Portugal with Kia for the international media drives of this, the Kia EV3. And it's safe to say it was probably the worst weather I've ever had on any press drive event I've been on since I've been doing YouTube. It was just terrible. It was torrential rain. And it was quite a difficult thing to film with the car and get my head around the car. So I booked the car in for a week because I thought I need to live with this car. I need to really understand it because I have a feeling it's a very, very good car. Sadly, this week hasn't quite turned out as I'd planned either. One of my problems I have with the first drive media events that I get invited on these days is that you get a very limited amount of time with the car, a day if you're lucky. And in that time, you have to drive the car, get your head around it and form an impression of the vehicle. You need to find a location to do the various bits of filming, both the static stuff around the outside, but also the driving parts. And if you're a single shooter like me, you have to do all of that on your own. So if the weather's bad on that particular day, it really throws a cat amongst the pigeons and makes it very, very difficult. And that's the situation I had with this car in Portugal last November. So to have a car for a whole week where you can spend time doing various different types of driving, put the car through its different paces in town, on a motorway, on nice twisty roads, that's the ultimate really. And then you can form a proper impression of the car to tell you guys whether it's any good or not. So I booked this car in as a press car. Unfortunately, what then happened last week is a few other things came in that made last week quite busy. I went to Paris for a reveal of a car. I had another event and another press car. And what it meant was my time with the car wasn't quite as long as I hoped it would be. I'd really wanted to put this car through a range test to see just what the stated range the manufacturer says is like when you compare it to the range you actually get in the real world. I also just wanted to spend time with this car because I honestly think this is, from a family car point of view, one of the best all-electric cars that you can currently buy in the UK. Now, I've done 2 videos with the EV3. That's one thing that really annoys me. You walk anywhere near the car and it opens itself and the door mirrors move and the door handles pop open. But I've done 2 videos so far with EV3 and I covered lots of the detail in those videos. So I'm going to put links to those videos in the video description, but also I'll put a link up above here, and at the end of the video, the end card, I'll link to the 2 videos there. So you can go back and have a look at those if you haven't watched them already. The interesting thing, when you're on a launch and you've got lots and lots of these cars, it was in exactly the same colour the car I drove in November, just the steering wheel's now on the other side. But when you are at a launch and all the cars are around, you kind of get blinded a little bit by the style and the design of the car. As soon as it gets out of that environment, back in the real world, and you drive it around, because there still aren't that many EV3s out there on the road, I think it just becomes more noticeable just how different the design language is for the EV3 and its big brother, the EV9. It's pretty punchy, to be fair, and a few people I know have seen the car and they fall into one of 2 categories: those people that absolutely love the car and those people that really don't. I'm in there, love the car. I really like the design. It's just different in this bland world of kind of white washing machine, just before anybody in the comments jumps onto that one. It's just nice to have a car that's just different. It has this really striking design. I really like the wheels. I wasn't sure about the wheels the first time I saw them in a studio. I like its boxy, chunky nature. And all in all, I'm a big fan of its styling. But one of the things I really wanted to do this week was to put it into the practicality test. You know, could I fit 2 dogs in the boot? Of course you can. What do you reckon? Is there enough room? What are you shaking for? It's a bit chilly out here today, isn't it? Bit chilly. Yes, for dogs, there's enough room. Obviously, we've got 2 very small dogs, but in here, I don't know whether you want to get a Labrador in here. It's not that big, but there is quite a bit of space. There's a false floor in here, so you can drop the the floor to give you a bit more space. You could take the parcel shelf out and drop the seats if you wanted the ultimate amount of room. I wonder if I could get my bike in the back. Maybe you need to give that a go. So let me just lift this one down because she's old now. She's 14 and a half now. I know. Doing well, aren't you, mate? So you go down there, and you big lump. Oh. She's 5. But yes, loads of room in the back for dogs. So I've taken the bike off the wall in the garage because it's a very bad emission. I haven't actually ridden it out this year yet. The weather's been okay the last week or two. It's been very cold, so I've been on my turbo trainer more, but I will need to get this bike out on the road soon because I've missed riding it. The question is, does it fit in the EV3? It's important consumer advice, this, you know. Now, I have taken the parcel shelf out and dropped both rear seats. I have a very high saddle, and before anybody says anything, I'm not going to drop the saddle height because I had this bike specifically fitted for me, and it's a pain in the arse to get it right again. So let's just see if it's as big as Kia say it is. I think that's, well, if I just do that. Yes! Bike in the back without even taking any of the wheels off. Next up, I quite like this. I like the door handle for the rear door here. What I'm not a big fan of, and I only really spotted this the other day, is I'm not a big fan of this. And the way that aperture's really quite tiny. So if I kind of sit in it, it's not so much of a problem getting in. Once you're in, there's plenty of room. I just don't like this aperture here. Maybe I'm being picky. I don't know what it is that kind of sets me off. I'm not a fan. But dogs in the boot, bike in the boot, they're things I can't do on a press launch. Well, especially foreign press launches, unless I took the dogs and the bike with me. Now, just before we go out driving, I think Kia have a major issue. And the major issue is this new interior, along with EV9 and the facelift EV6, is so good, it makes their older models just not look great at all. Little things, the new updated steering wheel, I'm a big fan on. I ran an old Nero plug-in hybrid back end of last year, and that didn't have the updated uplifted interior, and it just doesn't feel as cool as this. The choice of materials is excellent. These big screens actually work really well. Turning lane departure assistance off, dead easy. Long press of that button there, and then turning the speed bong off, there's a little star button that you can configure, and that will shortcut you into the right menu, but it's still a couple of presses to turn that off, which isn't the worst I've seen, but could be better. I think all manufacturers basically just have to do what Renault Group do and put all of their ADAS systems on one button and put a button on a steering wheel or on the dashboard somewhere. This central console here, you'd think when that lifts up that there's going to be some kind of bin or storage in there. There isn't. There's just this table thing. And I thought I'd get it, but I just think in theory, it seems like a great idea, but I'm sure in practice, it's one of those things that would never, ever get used. So the more I think about that, the less of a fan I become. And then my biggest challenge with this interior, having lived with a car for a week, is this big storage bin just here. So you've got your 2 cup holders with the little things that slide out when you want to actually put stuff in there. It's a really practical space because it's massive. The problem is, because it's massive, when you put stuff in there, it moves around. So whether that's a set of keys or, a bag or a bottle, it just moves around, and it's really, really annoying. The smartphone holder, you've got the wireless pad there with 2 little sidebars either side of it, and it is rubberized, so your smartphone doesn't move around so much, but anything else you put in there does, and it's annoying. And then just the last couple of things, you've got real buttons here for your temperature controls, which is nice, and things like your volume. So all in all, a really nice cabin. This particular model has the sunroof. I'm not going to call it a panoramic roof because it's only that big. For me, panoramic roofs are the full length jobbies, but that's more of a traditional size sunroof. But all in all, it's a very nice place to sit and a very relaxing place to be. But what's it like to drive? Now, once you've turned lane departure assistance and the speed bong off, the next thing you want to do when you drive this car is push the drive mode button and put it into sport mode. It's got eco, normal, sport, and then an individualized setting called My Drive. But in the sport setting, it just has more feel to it. The throttle mapping's a little bit sharper, and it's not a sports car, but it's got a really nice, very positive response to it, and it gets down the road really well. Now, the one thing I'd wanted to do this week was a range test. I really wanted to see just how good the range is on this car, but I am confident, and we've had pretty cold temperatures the week I've had it. So I'm showing 58% charge at the moment and 160 miles of range. I am pretty confident that you're going to get in excess of 300 miles on a full charge in most conditions, and in the summer months quite a bit more than that, maybe 320. And for me, that makes this car super usable. I had it a week. I haven't actually charged it this week. I've driven it quite a bit. I haven't put it on my 7 kilowatt wall box at home because I haven't felt like I've needed to, and that just takes that, if you like, the range anxiety thing away, and I get bored of talking about range anxiety when I'm doing reviews of EVs, because honestly I just don't think it's as big a problem as people make out. And this supports really rapid charging as well, so if you are on a longer journey, you can plug it into a high-speed DC charger and be on your way in no time. So all in all, I think living with this car as a proposition, I think it's probably a really easy thing to do. I am going a bit one take because I'm massively running out of time today. The next thing, I've got the regen braking setting set to the firmest, or if you like, the most aggressive of its 3 settings. And I find that on sort of just pootling around driving really nice. It's not pure one pedal driving, but it is pretty aggressive. So when you do come to a corner, you can just lift off and the car kind of slows itself down. You don't necessarily need to engage with the brake pedal. If I was going on a longer journey and I was going to be doing some dual carriageway or motorway driving, I'd basically turn that down to its least aggressive setting and let momentum take over rather than the regenerative braking in the car. But those systems, the way you interact with the car, is just really, really simple. The screens, now, the big screen in front of me, I like a lot, and I've got a head-up display as well. And those work really nicely together. All the information is easy to spot. The big screen with my infotainment system, now whether that's the Kia systems, which actually are pretty good. The Kia navigation I've used quite a lot. We use that on the press drives. It is very good. And when you do go into CarPlay, it's a massive screen. All I would say is that screen is a bit of a reach away because it doesn't bend around. It just goes flat along the dashboard. You do find yourself just reaching over to it a little bit, or in the worst case, kind of leaning forward to kind of get access, especially if the menu button you want to hit is on the left-hand side of that screen. The biggest challenge I've got in this car from a screen point of view is the middle screen, which shows my climate control settings, my temperature and where my fans are going and that kind of thing. And my problem with that is the steering wheel's in the way. I can't actually see it. If I'm sat here relaxed and I'm just looking where I would be going when I'm driving, I've got a steering wheel in the way, and that's super annoying. So I quite like the fact that there's a separate screen. It's touch if you want to, or you've got the proper buttons to interact with your heating controls. But the problem is the ergonomics of where it is, you just can't physically see it when you're in the driver's seat. And I'm trying to think whether or not, depending on how tall you are and how far back you have the seat, or because the steering wheel has quite a lot of adjustment in it, how far into the dash you've got the steering wheel, maybe that comes into view a little bit more, but it's not the best design in the world. Now, next thing, hopefully, we'll just be able to open her up a little bit. As I said, very relaxing car to drive. The ride quality is pretty good. It's a bit grumbly. This tarmac here, the surface isn't the best, and it's just making that kind of road roar noise, which is a little bit annoying. Just turn off up here. There's some nasty potholes up this road. It's quite a good test to see just how the car deals with them. Just here, they're really quite grim, but it's got a really nice way of dealing with them. It does feel a little bit floaty at times, the car, but I'm guessing, you know, I have to kind of get my head around the fact the car's set up for comfort and probably for efficiency rather than out and out sport. It's not a performance SUV at all, but the ride quality is pretty good. And in sport mode, you've got enough power and enough oomph to give you a nice engaging drive as well. The brakes, in terms of the actual piston and rotor, have a nice feel to them when you use them. And the interesting thing is, when you do press the brake pedal in an EV like this, there will be an element of that first part of braking where it probably just ramps up the regen and uses the motor to retard the car. And then if you're really asking for lots of stopping power, that's when the actual brakes start to bite and you get a more traditional braking feel. But all in all, it's actually quite nice. Now we're just kind of putting it into a few corners and things. It does float a little bit. It's a little bit wallowy in terms of ride. That means it's supple enough to deal with the bumps, but it's just a bit, yeah. I'm going to have to be a little bit boring and talk efficiency. But in the last 200 miles on the trip, the car's averaged 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. And that's not me trying to be particularly efficient or hypermile or anything. So, and that bears with numbers that I've seen in this car before. So I think 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour as a kind of starting point is probably where you are with this car. And I'm pretty sure if you drove it in the right mode with the right amount of throttle input and thought about it a little bit and had the right drive profile, I'm pretty confident this car would exceed 4 miles per kilowatt hour. And for me, as a metric in any electric car, that's always a good one. I'm always quite impressed if it's more than 3. If it's more than 3.5, I get quite excited. I don't see more than 4 very often, and I know people comment on videos and they're like, oh, I'm getting 5 miles per kilowatt hour. Well, good on you. I don't tend to see that. Maybe that's just my driving style. Maybe it's my throttle inputs are just a bit too harsh. But yeah, I think 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour isn't too bad. Now, what I'm now doing is I've done my kind of country driving. In the city, for me, this is where EVs work best. And this car, although it's more than capable of doing longer trips with the range it's got and the practicality in terms of passenger space and luggage capacity and so on, for me, this is a brilliant example of a car that is just great for town and city use. It's where EVs come into their own for me, where you're not driving along at too high a speed, so the aero doesn't start to have an adverse effect. And that's where you also start to get the best efficiency. But the really nice thing about this car is, although it feels really big on the inside, it's actually doesn't feel that big on the road. It doesn't feel that wide. It doesn't feel like, I mean, some of the big cars I've driven recently, you really notice their size when you're on, you know, especially in more built-up areas. This car doesn't feel that big. It doesn't sit that wide in the lane. It's just nice and easy. When you go to a car park, it sits in a standard size car park space with no worries whatsoever. I took it to the train station over the weekend and parked it up, and it was really easy. So it's just a very easy to live with car, and I think that's for me the benefit of, you know, when we do have the opportunity to spend longer with a car, up to, you know, a week with a car, or in some cases when I've lived with them as long term as this, that's when you get under the skin of a car. That's when you start to see the positives and the negatives, the things you like and the things that start to get on your wick after a while. And I have to say, this car doesn't have that many things that have got on me wick. Anyway, I've now got myself stuck in a whole bunch of traffic, which is typical, isn't it? Coming to do a nice drive around Chichester. But yes, anyway, what are your thoughts of the EV3? I'd love to know what you think of the design. As I said, those people I've met fall into one of two camps, and they're fairly stringently in one or two camps. You love it or you hate it. I'm a big fan of the design, but I'm also just a big fan of the car itself. It's, I think what Kia are doing at the moment, they really are, there's a number of manufacturers, I think, really just pushing the boundaries and making really great cars. Kia, Hyundai, Skoda, they are just right up there for me. And I guess you'd put this car up against something like Skoda's Elrock, which I've actually got coming later on this week. So I'll be interested to have them back to back, if you like, and just see what they're like to live with. But if you enjoyed that one, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film. Anyway, you take care, guys. Drive safe.